Welcome to the Miko TV debate, where we dive headfirst into the storm swirling around Trump's military parade and his immigration crackdown.
Absolutely, it's an explosive topic. The protests dubbed No Kings have really ignited passions on all sides, right?
Yeah, exactly. On Trump's 79th birthday, the parade turned into a real statement. You got a display of military might, and some folks are saying he's aiming to become a kind of modern-day monarch. But
Indeed.
others see it as simply securing American borders and reclaiming lost national pride.
Right, and the crux of the debate seems to be whether this display of strength is about restoring order or pure spectacle fueled by ego.
For sure. I mean, think about the perspective that Trump is doing what's needed. He's cleaning up our cities and, not to mention, showing that muscle when it comes to national security.
Yeah, I see that point. But then others argue that when tanks roll down the street and Marines are sent into cities like LA, it's more symbolic of a power grab than pragmatic policy.
Yeah, and here's where it gets interesting. Some say it's about saving America from itself. Like, chasing away what they consider the chaos
Exactly.
that has taken over in certain states.
Yet, it's crucial to ask, is national security really served by having a president who might be seen as a modern-day king? I mean, might that undermine democratic norms?
True, that's a key tension here. On one side, you have supporters who say, look, Trump's actions are a response to a nation where protests and border chaos have left everyday citizens
absolutely.
feeling unsafe.
And on the flip side, critics argue that such provocations, rolling out military might in urban areas, are less about safety and more about asserting power. It's like using brute force to stifle dissent rather than addressing underlying issues.
Right, it's like putting a band-aid on a much deeper wound. There's the point that states like California, which have their own dynamics and protests, are being unfairly lumped into this national security narrative.
That resonates. Exactly. And then you hear the counterpoint. Trump's approach is seen as a wake-up call, a decisive break from years of perceived weakness. But isn't there a real risk in substituting strength with spectacle?
You could say that, yeah. I mean, think about it this way. It's like if you're trying to fix a car, you might throw a wrench at it and call it repair rather than actually
Right,
diagnosing
that
the
analogy
problem.
works. I get that, but let's not forget that some supporters argue that the previous administration was too soft. They claim that there's been a neglect of clear borders and law enforcement that ultimately imperils national integrity.
Yeah, that's a common refrain. Sort of an if you're not tough enough, you're not protecting us argument. And in that light, the parade is a symbolic reclaiming of power.
Exactly. Still, here's my concern. Doesn't that approach risk alienating parts of the population? After all, the idea of a military parade as a demonstration of hard power might resonate with some, but it can also breed fear and a sense of authoritarianism.
That's a valid point, and it's where compromise or a more nuanced view should come in. I mean, if you're quoting the critics, such moves might support the notion of states' rights being trampled on by federal overreach.
Definitely. Exactly. One could argue that perhaps this is more a signal of internal division than of sound policy. And let's also consider the immigration crackdown. That's another polarizing issue at play here.
Yes, the immigration aspect adds a whole other dimension. Trump supporters believe that stricter immigration measures and military oversight at the borders restore order.
Yep, that's what they say. But critics counter that such crackdowns, when combined with military displays, can foster an environment of fear and marginalization. It's like mixing fire and gasoline.
Exactly. And while some see it as necessary for national security, others worry it undermines the democratic values that, well, many believe the country was built on.
Right, I understand that tension. Now, here's where I respectfully challenge a point. Isn't it possible that emphasizing military strength might, in the long run, lead to more entrenched polarization rather than genuine safety?
That's a fair critique. I mean, look at it this way. If you use force as a first resort, you risk creating a cycle where dissent is, well, continuously suppressed. And then, ultimately, you might have a nation where people are too scared to speak out.
Yeah, I hear you. Exactly. It's a delicate balance. On one hand, you need to uphold law and order, but on the other, you have to ensure that freedom of expression and democratic debate aren't compromised.
Right? And therein lies the entire controversy. People are debating whether Trump's approach, part military, part immigration crackdown, is a necessary tough love measure or an overstep that risks our democratic principles.
Definitely a tightrope to walk. And it's not just about policy, is it? There's also the symbolism at play. The idea of a military parade on a birthday, almost like a coronation event, sends a very clear message.
Absolutely. It's like the visual rhetoric of power. Supporters see it as a reclaiming of national pride, while opponents view it as a dangerous flirtation with monarchical imagery.
Right on point. You know, I was reading some commentary that suggested if Trump had a blueprint for reform, he'd be rebuilding America from the ground up, not just performing these grand public spectacles.
That's interesting because it cuts right to the heart of the matter. Whether this parade is a sign of substantive change or just a flashy performance. It's like putting on a show to distract from what really needs to be fixed.
Exactly, that's a solid point. Yet for many on his side, this is exactly what's required. A decisive move to counter the perceived inaction of previous leadership.
Yup. And here's where you see the divide. Some say, look, if you're not willing to show strength, you'll crumble under internal chaos. And that's a perspective born from frustrations with, say, ongoing protests and a sense that earlier administrations were too passive.
But then what about the long-term implications? I mean, if the approach is too heavy-handed, don't you risk pushing the country towards authoritarian tendencies?
Precisely, and that's the million-dollar question. It's like, if you rely too much on force and spectacle, you might secure a momentary sense of order, but you also risk eroding the very democratic foundations that make the country resilient.
Absolutely, that's the danger. And let's not ignore the human element here. Reports of veterans getting caught up in these protests or even detained raise some serious ethical and legal questions.
Yeah, that part really paints a concerning picture. If we're talking about upholding liberty, detaining veterans or using them as political symbols is deeply troubling.
Right, that's troubling indeed. So in essence, while some view Trump's actions as a revival of national pride and a necessary stand against chaos, others see it as a step toward authoritarian showmanship with dangerous repercussions.
Exactly. It's a debate that cuts right to the core of what democracy means. Is it about balancing strength with freedom, or is it a slide into using power as a tool for spectacle?
Absolutely. And you know, in all this, the voices on both sides have something to say. While Trump aims to appeal to those frustrated by decades of perceived weakness, critics are equally passionate about protecting democratic debate and civil liberties.
Right. And it's not a simple black and white issue. There's a spectrum of opinions here, and every layer, from the symbolism of the parade to the implications of an immigration crackdown, adds complexity to the conversation.
Yes, very layered indeed. So here's the big question for everyone tuning in. Is this a necessary show of strength to safeguard American values? Or is it a misdirected performance that could endanger the democratic essence of the nation?
That's the million-dollar question. And while debates like this might seem polarizing, they're essential to engage deeply with what's at stake. It's not just about policy, it's about the soul of the country.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, remember that these discussions are vital in steering public discourse in a way that considers both the need for security and the importance of upholding freedom.
Exactly, and we invite you all to join in the conversation. Drop your thoughts, comments, and engage respectfully. Our nation's future depends on a robust and balanced debate.
Right, let's keep that dialogue open. And that wraps it up here at Miko TV. Thanks for sticking with us on this unfiltered debate where every perspective matters.